not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain.
So basically we're just going to do a quick review of what we learned last week. We're going to need a little bit of help from you guys. So the first week we discussed a little overview and background of the Ten Commandments. So what did we learn? What was the topic of discussion last week? So it was one of the commandments, so like the first one, which is he said that. David, what is it?
You got my desire number.
You got that been here to know the first commandment? Alright, so it was about false gods and worshiping other gods, right? So we briefly, or when we started the class, he said something. He said he's going to do something a bit different than the other weeks that he's done the lessons in regards to a specific topic, which is just dive into what it is, how it was made, what's the purpose, all that. So he did something a bit different. Does anybody know what he did that was different from other weeks?
Wait.
Huh?
What was the question?
So usually when there's a topic of discussion like a commandment, he goes into that commandment, just breaks it down. What was the purpose of it? Where is the origin? What's the meaning? How does it affect us? That's basically like normal sermon or normal teaching. But he did something a bit different last week.
He referenced Cardi B.
That's true.
He did.
So the main thing that was a bit different to start off was he focused on the style and nature of the commandment and of the whole commandment, and looked at what the purpose is in regards to just the style of it. So when you say style of the commandment, you kind of like that was the whole class. I'm kind of mad at you guys. So the style he discussed is. You guys don't remember when he was like, "I don't like God"? Like he specifically said that, and the language we use, what the purpose is. So that was the style he was talking about. So why did he not like English when you were reading the Bible?
Because English is a weak language compared to the languages that were originally used to express like God and what God is.
Okay, so that's true. So, and similarly, the same thing applies to Amharic. So Amharic is just as weak, maybe not as weak, but it's still pretty weak. And why is it like that? Because if you want to understand like a specific word, what do you have to do? You have to go to the origin of like where the language came from. So if you're talking English, you got to go to Latin or Greek or something like that. And Amharic, same thing, you got to go to Giz. So you have to really talk about the origins and the style they use and the words they use to really understand. And the quote that we specifically talked about is God spoke all these words, right? And the word God, when said in English, meant completely different thing than in Giz. So when we talked about it in Giz, it said it's a plural form of a singular God. So when the God word is used, you can tell it's not one God. Well, it's one God, but it's plural. So it's talking about the triune God, right? So that was the main thing he tried to get the idea across, so to kind of understand the different language and stuff like that. So and then we talked about it as like specifically how Egypt represented hardship, and so when he talked about how I took you out of Egypt. When he's talking to the Israelites, he was talking to us and how he took us out of hardship, right? So, and then he switched it up, not he, David, he, God, switched it up when he said you and talking to everybody, us, and then right after he said you, as in specifically you, how can you serve other gods, right? So if you understand who God is, you really understand who God is in terms of what He's done for us and what He continues to do for us and the future that we have with Him, it's not hard to not serve other gods. But how can you do it is the whole purpose of the commandment. The commandment is not don't do it. You can if you want, but how can you? That's the whole idea that he tried to get across. It seems like nobody. But yeah, so so he's not forcing us to follow him. That's the biggest thing that I think I got out of it. Is when we say commandments, it's easy to say there are laws and rules that we have to follow if we want to get to heaven. But it should be laws and rules that how can we not follow if we understand God. So that's how I try to look at it. So, and then we talked about the definition of Exab here is like the king of like a land or area. So like he's the ruler, and if you want to be kings, he connected it how if he's the king and we're his children, how can we hate one another? Like how can you hate a child of God, right? That's also something that kind of hit true with me. So he talked about one of our homework was what is your false god, right? So what is false worship actually? Let me ask somebody that doesn't usually speak. What is a false worship?
Like something that takes you away from like God or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We give the example of the calf.
Yeah. So the calf is a great example, but in general, the main idea that we got, I think, is anything that takes you away from God is like that's you worshiping that thing, and if it takes you away from God, that's false worship, right? So, and we all have personal gods, and I can like from my history, a lot of like for a long time, it used to be video games. Like I failed Spanish because like Halo 3 was like my favorite. Like in 9th grade, like I literally didn't graduate with honors from high school because of Halo 3. So like that was at the time that was my God, right? And then even now like there's a lot of things like in regards to work, in regards to like family and stuff like that. There's personal things that kind of at a certain moments kind of hold in high regard and like take your whole life over. And it's hard not to do that a lot of times. So I'll let him ask you the question, but your homework was to find what your false worship or your personal God is. So that's some of mine. So, and then we moved forward to talk about how sin, specifically sin, we have to look at it as false worship. It's not just something that we do that's taking us away from God. It's like we're worshiping sin because the definition of sin is something that takes you away from God, and the definition of false worship is something that takes you away from God. So those things are very similar. So if we have things that are in our life that take us away from how close we are with God, those are not only sins, they're also false worship, right? So, and then the biggest part, I'm going to end with this, is there are three things that kind of take us away from God. What do you guys think those are? Like, or three forms of false worship.
Money?
You said one. So like not like things as I'm sorry. Like so like you said one of them. What did you say earlier?
The calf?
The calf. So like literal idols. That's a false worship, right? And then other things like bad things that we do that take us away, which are sins. That's a false worship. And then there's a third thing that we can do that's also false worship. There's not those two. So it's idols, it's bad things that take us away from God, which are sins. And then there's good things that we do that are still false worship. So good things like focusing on studying too much, and then like a lot of people, or even me, I guess, like it's hard to ask for help a lot of times. Like you feel like you're weaker, right? Like I had that problem for a long time. I still kind of do. It's hard to, like when you ask for help, you're admitting you can't do it yourself, right? So you really, like a lot of times you really want to do the best you can, and then you're, like if you really focus and do the job and study and you pass, what are you going to say? I did it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you focus on all yourself and that's what you're going to say, I did it, where's God's part in that? Right? So even though the thing is good, even though you're helping your family, even though you're doing great things, if you're focused on your abilities and you doing it and you doing it and you doing it, when you do it, and you might be able to, even though with God help, you're not going to realize it, and then you're worshiping yourself at the end of the day. Right? So that's some things we talked about. If you guys have any questions, direct it that way. I looked at something. Nobody said. I'm not gonna sit.
I got you. You know how school I was to play?
Look, it's never had
Losing time.
You felt it, right?
Is the door open though? Is it?
We just closed it.
You know, you guys complain about being hot. You know like how hard it is to stand up. It's hard. Try it. No? It was hot, right? I'm sorry. Alright, let's get started. We already did the review. Everything he said, right? That was the review. That's what we learned about last week. Guess what we're going to talk about this week? What are we talking about this week?
The name of the Lord.
Which commandment are we on?
Third.
Second.
We're on the second commandment, third week, right? The first week was intro. Now, since you guys read Exodus and Genesis, and you guys are experts now, what is the second commandment?
Thou shalt not take the Lord's name your God.
Don't say me God's name in vain.
So what was the second commandment?
Don't take the Lord God's name.
What's the second commandment?
Don't take the Lord God's name in vain.
You learned that in Tonga? Say it about mine. So it's like you guys, you know, at the very minimum, we should be reading Exodus 20 like every day, right? So like, it's not, because like in the dream discourse, right? Exodus chapter 20. Why? Because like, you know, things like this, it's not like something you read and you're like, oh, I get the point and walk away, right? It's something that you gotta kind of like keep reading over and over until you can make sure that it's like a part of who you are, right? So like you shouldn't really be thinking about the commandments and all this stuff. It should come, you know, kind of naturally, right? So read it, reread it, try to really analyze everything that's saying. Quick point, why not? A lot of people have the Orthodox Study Bible. Whose Bible is this? That's right. So it's a good resource, right? But here's the thing: if you guys know my English is not, you know, it needs work, right? So I can't understand versions like this, like personally, right? So I have don't do that. Don't. It's not easy. It's really difficult. Don't do it. Don't. The copy. Give us 10 copies. So like, inscribe what? I thought I was supposed to read it. That was like a message, you know? So get like a Bible version that you understand. Don't just get like the oldest version that you could get just because it sounds archaic. Like that doesn't help you if you can't understand what it's saying. So get a version that you can understand and be like, okay, like that's what it's saying. Then when you're serious about really trying to figure out the meaning of whatever, then we could talk about which versions or whatever, and like even one version is not enough. Like, you know, you got to get 2 or 3 and like compare together. But you know, like at this point, all you're trying to get is like the storyline. Like get a version that you understand. You're not doing anybody a favor by getting like the tough ones, like, you know, the old sounding Bible versions. So that's not gonna help you at all. Just get a version that you understand. Questions on that? No? Let's get into today. Today's my favorite. Now, all of them are my favorite commandment, right? Like, I really like all of them. But here's another commandment that we're going to look at. I don't think a lot of people understand what it's saying, and I don't think a lot of people think it applies to them. When I tell you, don't call his name in vain. Don't call God's name in vain. We always say this, right? So it's like you usually think about like you driving. This really happened. I've told y'all about my driving skills, right? So one time me and my mom we were driving, and then like I almost got in an accident, and my mom was like, "I'm and I was like, "Oh," you know, and used a few profanity words, not too much, and it showed me like the difference in our mindset, right? So like for her, she's invoking the Virgin Mary's name. It could be like Jesus or whatever, but that's not in vain. Like they're actually calling it. And then most of the time, the in vain comes in when you're just like, oh my God, and then you're like, don't call God's name in vain. And we feel like this commandment is limited to that. No? Am I? So what do you guys think? Like this commandment is really about? Then, if it's not about that, like let's do it like the other way around. Instead of me asking you at the end of class, like, what did you learn? What do you think you're gonna learn? Huh? Switch it up. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get. What do you think it's about without reading the notes? Page 5 says, yeah.
Like when it's appropriate to call his name and why we call his name.
Very good. Very good. What else? What do you guys think like calling his name in vain means? What does vain mean? Like how do you call somebody's name in vain?
For no reason.
It don't matter.
Badly?
For no reason.
Putting it in the bag.
For trivial things.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're using it and you don't mean to fulfill something, like if I make a promise and I say and I use the Lord's name and then I don't commit to that, you're just using it purposelessly.
Very good. Very good. Everything you guys have said is in the right direction. That's the direction that we're going to go today. Right? So one of the things like, it's wrong to call God's name in vain in the way that we already think about it. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about, like, we shouldn't walk around saying, oh my God, I'm having a horrible day because I can't get into the club that I want to. Like, that is, you know what I mean? Like, but we do it. Like, oh my God, it's a horrible day. Like, you know? Like, why? Because I can't do this. Like, that is obviously in vain, and I'm not going to spend time talking about that because you guys know that kind of stuff, right? So I want to get into, like, the real deeper meaning that we need to kind of look at and spend time talking about the stuff that we need to talk about. So I like the obvious stuff, like let's get it out of the way, right? Like, 'cause we know it's wrong. So before we talk about calling his name in vain, the first thing we need to talk about is the fact of names. Like, you alright? Oh, I don't know who sneezed.
That covered up.
That's pretty cool. If you didn't say anything, I'll look at hey, I'll like, keep it down. So we know that there's how many different type of names? We learned about this already. It's right there on the piece of paper. Three type of name. Three type of name. Okay, what's the first type of name?
Given name.
It's given name, right? So like, by the way, your homework assignment is this. Like, figure out what your name means, right? So if you guys know, you know? So if you guys know, the first thing that I try to do is try to like, because it's interesting, like, certain names are hilarious, right? Like, if you really think about it, and,
Especially Amharic names.
Amharic names, right? But you know what else, like, names are kind of interesting to me? Are like, they're meant to be spiritual, but they kind of, I don't know, like the person giving the name really understood. Like, one of the funniest names to me is like Kirube, right? Like, Case was already laughing. Like Kirube, Surafe, like these names are funny because they're like thousands of angels. It's like calling Seyums. You know, like many angels combined. Like, one Kirub, singular, and then there's Kirubel, like a plurality of them, like many of them. Like the angels that are holding the throne of God. Like they collectively are called Kirubel. One angel is called Kirub, singular, right? And the same thing, so Surafi, like the ones who honor God and holy, holy, holy. Surafi, one, and Surafel as a community, like as a city.
What is Surafi?
Like, I don't know the actual name.
Seraphim.
Surafi, yeah. What, like, this is another word. What is the meaning of the word? Huh? I don't know either. I don't know, so I gotta check. So like, and then their names like Amanuel. I'm like, ooh, like, because it means like God is with us, right? It's the name of like Jesus, right? So like, you know, people say, call me Amanuel. I was like, I'd rather not. Like, it's a heavy name. Like, ooh, right? So like I'm not. Hey, there might be some people in here like that's my cousin's name. But like it's interesting. We learn about this not just because, but like next time like when we're around whatever, we could educate people, right? Like El Shaddai. You ever met somebody named El Shaddai?
Guys and girls.
On both sides. So that's a heavy name though. Because your name, right, is kind of supposed to like represent who you are, right? But a lot of names that even like the regular names that we have don't represent who we are, right? Like
David.
so example.
People
Alright, let's pick on a random person. Oh, I don't know, Tuhut. So like it's just randomly. I don't know how it's just random. So like here's this girl, her name is Tooth. What does Tooth mean?
Humble.
No, it's humble.
Yeah, it's humble.
Yowa, right? So like if she comes up and she's like being like, oh no, and this and that, whatever. Well, she's from Texas, she doesn't really talk like that. But if she did, right? If she talked from like like very like in a very unhumbly way, then we'd be like, yo, her name is Toot. Right? But like if she's like Toot, like okay, whatever, then her name is like expressing that. It's like people like Salam. And then like anything but, right? Like it's like, really, your name is Salam, So like it's the same thing. So that's what it means. Like Dawit, the Ba'amalak, like that's a heavy name, like the heart of God. Like I don't know, but but so your job, your homework assignment. I think it's a fun exercise is to go and figure out the meaning and really challenge yourself, right? Like challenge yourself. And then really try to figure out, like, Dawit, I could be like, Dawit means Dawit. Like, no, it actually has, like, a name. Okay, so I give you yours, right? It has a meaning.
You gave it to me 2 years ago.
Did I? You remembered it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Wait, I have a question.
yeah.
So what if your name is associated with the story and not
It probably still has a meaning, that's my point.
Same
like
thing.
the individual?
Lydia, your name has a meaning, go and find out.
Tell
Alright?
me.
It's a province. Lydia is a province. But
Ancient Roman.
And the
It's a
name,
person.
oh,
That's what I'm
like,
saying. There's a story. Like my name has a story. Like it's a person.
get the story, and the name also has, I'm like 90. So the biblical stories, they didn't just come up with names. Right? They weren't like, let's put L-D-Y.
That is not how they put it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Like, that's not how they did things, right? So they probably were like, no, it has this function, so let's call it this. And then when like the Greek just comes over to the Amharic, and then we just call him Lydia, like Dawit. This is probably Hebrew, right? So the same thing, like,
Who do we ask?
no, I'm not.
Google.
Google.
You're like Orthodox name for me.
Hey, we gotta go with the class. Like, figure it out. You're grown. Then we got promotional names. Can you think of one promotional name? Esu, right? He really hates me right now. Please don't excommunicate me. Please. So you got a promotional name, right? So like promotional name is when you're promoted. Siyum, right? Siyum means promoted, by the way. Siyam, anointed, promoted, the same thing.
I finished my homework.
Right? So like, but you're not promoted to anything, right? Like, so like, but this is so that hurt. So everybody together. So I could go up to him and say Kesu, and he will know. Like he will know, right? And like Diabon, Habit, I just wanted to say. So you have like manager, CEO, like Lika Siyuman. So like we have all these like promotional names, right? King and stuff like that. And then the third type of name, we really got to go through this because there's a lot of things to cover there. The third type of name is natural names. I give you an example of this. So, we've been through this so many times, right? So, what does that mean? 7, right? It's a number. By the way, the number 7 in the Bible represents what? Perfection. So, when we are called 7, like that's like what, like our humanity, like we're called 7. Why? Because it describes like our function. We have 7 things within us, right? The 4 parts of like the flesh and the 3 parts of our soul. 3 plus 4 equals 7. We're perfect in like how we are. So it describes who we are, right? By the way, like when it talks about, it cracks me up. When it talks about pray 7 times a day in the Bible, people are like 1, 2, 5 more. So, no, pray perfection, like pray to the fullest extent. The reason why our forefathers put 7 in place is at least pray 7 times a day to give us some structure, so we have like something to follow. But it doesn't mean literally pray 7 times a day. It means pray to fullness, like perfection, right? So whenever you read like 7, that's what it's really saying. The number 7, and like the reason why we have like these prayer books divided to 7 parts is to give some structure, foundation. Then when we talk about God, I don't like God, but I do like እግዚአብሔር, right? So when we talk about እግዚአብሔር, guess what kind of name that is? It's a natural name. It's a name that is prescribed to him, not just like a name like people are gonna sit down and be like, what should we call that thing? እግዚአብሔር. That's not what happened, right? It was his behavior, his nature, that dictated his name, not the other way around. Usually we are born without knowing how we are gonna behave, without knowing how we're gonna act. People give us a name. Whether or not we live up to that name is a different story. That's your homework assignment. That's your homework assignment. But we're given, so in terms of God though, it was his nature that dictated his name. In this case, we said his name is? እግዚአብሔር. What does እግዚአብሔር mean?
King of the land.
King of the land, governor of the land, governor of the world, he who governs everything, like all that goes, right? So it really tells us, and we get an idea of who God is. Now, there's other names associated with the name እግዚአብሔር when we go into the Bible. Genesis chapter 17, verse 1, and a very important chapter. We talked about this already, right? So this is the story of Abraham. It calls him Abraham here. What's his Abraham versus Abraham. Abraham means father, and Abraham means the father of many nations, right? So his name was changed. Now he's 99, and this part of the story, he still doesn't have a kid. All they want is a kid with his wife, who like they're the same age. They're losing hope, right? They're like, it's the end, like 99. You know what I mean? Like at that moment, if you don't have a kid, you could kind of like throw your hands up. But then he comes up to him and says, when Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am Almighty God, walk before me and be blameless. In like the Hebrew version, it says El Shaddai, meaning Almighty God. Again, this is like another name that's given because of his behavior. He's Almighty. Like, trust in me and what I can do. Call me El Shaddai. That's what he's telling them. Like, my name is El Shaddai. Trust what I can do. Another name I like is Yahweh or Jehovah. Exodus chapter 6 verse 3. This is another really like, we're not Jehovah Witnesses, we're Orthodox Tawahdo.
No, but you translated the word as
Jehovah, yeah, because like whenever the way it works is when like language is being translated over, they have a problem with Y, right? Like the Westerners. So instead of Y, they say Jah. Yaakov, Jacob. Jesus, Jesus. So they have a problem with this, right? So Yahweh, yeah, stuff like that, right? So like Jehovah. So like there's this like J that comes in as it kind of comes over. So that's where Jehovah comes in the Western nature, in the Western world, because they have a problem with Y for some reason. How do we do that? Oh, Yahweh. So in Exodus, another like very popular story, right? So we have the story of Moses, like kills the guy, very bad, leaves, and he's kind of doing his own thing. He marries an Ethiopian, he's eating kutfo. So like he's doing his thing, all of a sudden, one day, he sees a burning bush. Here's the thing, when you guys are reading the Bible, please, and I've told you this before, like be in that moment. So I, like, burning bush, put the Bible down and think about it. Like, you're going to school, you know, minding your own business, like you're in the park, and you see a burning bush, like, talking to you. What do? You know what I mean? Like, that's like, wow, you know? So I always think about what was like Moses' first thing, like, Like, you know, like you go crazy, right? Like, oh, this is it. Like, I knew I was going crazy. So, like, that Moses was like, oh my, like, burning bush, like, hey, you know, like, what do you do? So then he takes off his shoes because it's a holy place, hence why we take off our shoes when we come to the church. Then he goes down, he bows down, he starts talking. And then he says, hey, man, I'm going to need you to go back to Egypt. It's like, been there, done that, don't want to do this anymore. I got a beautiful wife, I got kids, I'm doing my thing. And so God says, no, you're going to be the reason why all these people are going to get out of Egypt. Right? He's like, you know, there's a Pharaoh, that's the king. He's going to kill me. What am I going to say to him? Like, he's going to ask me who sent me. Who should I say sent me? You know what he said? Tell him, I am has sent you. I am who I am. Like, that's his name. I am. Yahweh, that's the Hebrew version. I am who I am. Like, that's his name. What does this tell us about his name? Again, this is not just like a name that's given, but there's nobody else like God. I am who I am. Like, we can't compare God to any other thing in this world. There's no other forces, nothing in this world that could ever take the place of God. He is who he is. He's God. So we can't replace God whenever we do, and we try to do this a lot. And that was last week's lesson, right? Don't worship any other God before me. So we try to replace God with something else. But no. He is who he is. I am who I am. We can't replace him. Yes, sir.
What were the first two things again?
What were the first two things?
The natural names?
Are we doing on time?
Do you have a computer right for me?
Please don't do it. No, your hair.
Time.
Don't do it. Don't. We need to talk about that. Alright, now here's the thing what you need to know about the name, right? Are you guys with me? Yeah, everybody with me? Yes? Yes? Here's the thing that we need to know about the name. His name is not just like his nature, but his name actually has power in it. Like his name in itself has power. Whenever we call his name, we're like activating a set of forces. Not just a set, but like the force. Right? Whenever we call his name actually has power. We're going to look at this in the story, of course, of King David and Goliath. Now, here's the thing. I love the story. You know why I love the story? Number one, because it's David and Goliath. You know what I mean? But most importantly, like, the story of David really, like, captivates me because in a lot of ways I felt like me and him got the same story. Thank you. I'm still waiting on to be a king. But here's the thing. When you read the story of, like, King David, you guys with me? Everybody in the back? Yeah, yeah? So we got people like King David, we got people like Paul, we got people like Abraham, and all these people. You got the entire lineup of the disciples. All these guys were weak. They didn't have any power. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any respect in this world. They were like the lowest of the low, right? Like, look at the lineup of the disciples. You got tax collectors, which is like equivalent day pimps and thugs, right? You have farmers, which are like Uber drivers, right? I'm serious.
Are you serious?
Why shoot him?
He's actually
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lift is a little bit up there. Lift is
Lifts you up.
it lifts you up. But like, it's like the lowest jobs like you can think of. These guys were like in society. They didn't have any respect. Then you got a guy like King David, right? So like at this time, he's Farmer David, right? So farming is like the basic job that you could possibly have. This guy was, and he couldn't even do his job correctly. Like his dad didn't respect him and what he did, right? So at the time, there was huge war happening. War between Israelites and the Philistines. Now here's the thing about war. Back in the day, when they fought against each other, guess who they're really fighting against?
Themselves.
Their gods. It was a battle of the gods. So whenever they lost, this is why. We good?
You good.
You're right. So back in the day, right? Like when you read the Bible, this is why it's a big deal when they lose a battle, right? Like especially like when you read 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel, and they lost that battle, like they lost, you know, the Ark of the Covenant. It's a huge. That means their God lost. That's how they're taking it. Like what happened? Like our God can't lose. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal, right? So in this particular case, they're in a battle. So it's like their God's name is at stake. But then they're like at a weird spot, right? So like they're at this mountain where like there's two sides, and one side has disadvantage, the other side has disadvantage. The issue, there's like a little like what is it?
The valley?
Valley, thank you, it's my English. So the valley at the bottom, right? So the problem is, if these guys, remember, this is back in the day, they can't shoot a gun or anything like that. What they got to do is they got to go down and they got to go up, right? So if this side gives up its like place and they go down and come back up, this guy's going to beat them, vice versa. So you don't get it? Y'all don't get it? That's a very simple concept. There's two mountains and then there's a valley. So if either side comes down, then the other side has the advantage. Because like if you were on the higher ground, you could just attack. This is like easy, right? So they're both in a deadlock situation. And they're like, they can't move. Anybody who moves, like the other person would lose. So they get it. They're in a deadlock. It's been like 2-3 days. They're tired. They're hungry. So like David is going to like fetch food for the brothers because it's been several days. They need food, right? They can't move because they're in a deadlock. Something has to happen. So the Philistines are saying, hey, like clearly, like nobody's gonna move. Let's just do one combat, right? Like one-on-one fight. We have our best soldier. Y'all pick your best soldier and let them go to war. Now, their best soldier happens to be Goliath. This guy's huge. We talking about 8-9 feet tall. Like he's tall. Like he's a tall guy. We're not talking hell tall. That's nothing. I'm sorry, man. What I do? We're talking about a guy who's huge. So like, so like, there's this guy, and he's like, fight me one-on-one. Anybody, any Israelites, let's do it. Let's go. Everybody's like, not today. We're not, because who's gonna fight this guy? So here's little David. Little David comes out, like, okay, all right. Like, here's some food, guys. And then while he's doing this, he hears Goliath talking about their God. That's a no-no. That's a no-no. He's like, so what are you about to do about this? Saul, who's the king at the time, is like, hey, you need to go back home. Don't do this. Don't do this. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to allow anybody to talk negatively about my God. There's no way. There's no way. He's like, we got to fight him. Like, who's going to fight this guy? He's like, I am. I will fight him. Like, you little man? Like, come on, man. Like, you can't do anything. Like, I'll fight him. All right. Give him the armors and, like, get him set up. So he puts on the helmet and, like, the shield and all this. He can't handle it. It's so big. So they start laughing. Ha ha, little David. Can't do it. Get out of here. But it's in the name of God. No, I got to fight for God. You know what? I don't need the shield. I'll just go and fight him. Now, Goliath is out there, like, saying all of these, like, bad things about God. And then this is what David says. David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with sword, spear, and whatever that word is.
Javelin.
Javelin? Yep, that's what I'm thinking. So it says, but I come to you in the name of the Lord, in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. I come at you in the name of the Lord. He didn't say, I come defiled. Yeah, defied.
Defied.
I thought there was an L in there. It's the fonts. It's the fonts. So, he comes at him in the name of God. He didn't say, you know what? God is coming after you. He said, in the name. Why? Because the name in itself has power. The name in itself has power. I come at you in the name of God. You may be this big guy. You might like try to scare everybody. You know who else said at you? The name of God. You see how powerful that? The name of God. He said, in the name of God. He picks up a rock, and he takes like this sling, shoots it up. Now, Goliath is laughing, like, ha ha, little man. And then that rock comes, hits him in the head. And he falls forward. Not backward, forward. Foreshadowing the fact that everybody is going to bow down to the King David himself in the future. Right? In the name of God. He came at him. Here's the thing. We have this issue of thinking there's the name of God and there's God. Right? Like we always say like, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. in the name of God. And then like we're like, I want to stand in the presence of God the day that I will, like in the presence of God. Whenever we're calling His name, we are in His presence. You can't separate God and His name. You can do that with everything else, right? Like if something bad happened to you, like in the incident with my mom and like the car, like you're about to like, you say, "Darling, do not something." I promise nothing will happen. In fact, chances are you're gonna get in the accident, right? Like calling my name will do absolutely nothing, right? Nothing. But if you say in the name of God, you're invoking like energy, like power. You're like that is the power. All you gotta do is say the name. That is the power. That Himself is God. You can't separate the name from God Himself. I come at you in the name of the Lord. In the name of the Lord. Let's show it. Let's see. God's anger towards Judah. How much are you guys interested about knowing like the history and stuff like that? I don't know. Yes? Yeah. Should we get into it?
Yeah.
A lot of it? A lot of it? So, I like to kind of set you guys up for what's happening, right? Because, sometimes you say like Bible, what Jeremiah said this, whatever. You're like, you don't know who Jeremiah is, right? So, the setup is this. We talked about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Joseph goes to Egypt. We talked about this, right? Yeah. So, like, that's why I'm skipping over it. Then, like, there's the 12 nations, right? Then, here's what's interesting. So, we have the first 5 books of Pentateuch, and then we have the Joshua. When they enter into the promised land, they're told they're going to have a promised land. And they have the book of Judges. So Judges are 16 people who come to rescue the Israelites whenever the enemy comes and takes over them. Now, what's interesting about this is, at that time, every other nation had a king. They had their own king, except for the Israelites. They boasted about their king who's in the kingdom of heaven. That was their thing. That's what they had going for them. Right? That's why they were able to defeat all these people. Whenever like they were about to like cross over a land or whatever, they were like, the Israelites are coming. The Israelites, their king is powerful. The God of Abraham. Like we heard about it. So like that was the thing that like they had going for themselves. After Samuel, who was like the last judge, rescuer, the people come and say, "We want an earthly king." God's heart is broken. He's like, "I thought I was your king. Like, what are you doing?" No. We want our own king. Like, really? All right, fine. I'll give you a king. So he gives him Saul. Saul is an interesting character because he's a decent guy, right? He's a decent guy. But then he turns out being bad at the end. And as a result of that, he loses his kingdom to David. David's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's the heart of God. But he does do certain stupid things, right? As a result, he doesn't get to create the first temple. Instead, his son does it, who is? Solomon takes over. Now, Solomon is the king, the 3rd king of Israelites. Then, who's the king after that? And it's quiet. You guys know why you don't know who the next king is? We know the order. Saul, David, it's Solomon. And then, like, there is a lot of kings after him, actually, surprisingly.
Is it Rehoboam?
Exactly. So what happens is, the first division happens in the nation of Israel. There's a fight about who's going to take over what. The story is long. So to condense it, there's a guy by the name of Rehoboam who goes into the south and takes 2 out of the 12 tribes, Benjamites and the Judah. They're usually 1. So you hear the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah really means the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. The tribe of Judah and Benjamin. So like, whenever you guys are reading the Bible and it talks about the tribe of Judah, insert and Benjamin. Because like they're working together, but Benjamin, like a small tribe, a very small tribe. In the north, you have Jeroboam, right? Jeroboam, who takes the other 10 nations, right? So this is the whole thing of like the northern nation, the capital city is called Samaria. Hence why like the whole like the Samaritans and all this stuff. Because now there's like a feud between the south and the north. Like they're kind of fighting. It's not looking good. So, for the next several hundred years, the north have their own king and their own system, and the south have their own king and their own system. Everybody in the north is bad. Everybody. It's either bad or really bad. Like all the kings and the generations and stuff like that. In the south, most are bad, but there's some good. Like really, really good guys. Decent guys. As a result of this, different prophets, hence the 12 minor prophets, Remember major prophets, minor prophets, major prophets? So most of the prophets are actually in the northern region, for the most part, talking to the kings. Hey guys, like, remember Abraham? Remember Isaac? Like, get it together. What are you guys doing? Get it together. Like, be good, right? So that's what's happening. You guys kind of get like the feel of it?
Yeah.
Right? So there's north, south, north usually bad, south kind of bad. Because the north is really bad, guess what happens? Destroyed, like really, really fast. Enemy comes and takes over the land. So in the south, they're kind of good. Say, do you guys see what happened to the north? The same thing is going to happen to you if you don't listen to me. Like, if you guys don't get your act together, remember the covenant you guys made in Exodus chapter 20? Remember the fact that you guys said you were going to be my nation? If you forget that, the same thing that happened in the north is going to happen in the south. So Jeremiah, here's spoiler alert, right? So the south is also destroyed at the end, right? It happens. They end up losing everything. So Jeremiah, it happens several times actually. But Jeremiah is at a part where it's about to be destroyed. Like the south is about to be destroyed. That's where he comes in. So whenever you guys are reading the book of Jeremiah, like that's the context of it. Like when you're reading it, like read it in that time frame, that history, right? So it's about to get destroyed. In the book of Jeremiah, God says the following, given the context that I just gave you guys. Alright? It says, the Lord says, now I will show them my power. He's talking about the nation of Judah, because they're not listening. They're not listening. Now I will show them my might. At last they will know my name is the Lord. They will know me. Like usually you talk to your friend, like, hey, you'll see how serious I am. You don't know me. That's what you say, right? Hey, you don't know my name. You think my name is just a name? What's the 5 major prophets, like what are the names? Isaiah. Okay, what's the, like, another way to ask this question is, what's the 2 books that Jeremiah wrote? He wrote 3, but the 2. Jeremiah and Lamentations. Which means?
Wait, I thought Solomon wrote.
No.
That's Ecclesiastes.
Yeah. So Lamentations is like, he was crying. In fact, he couldn't finish it. Like when he saw the destruction of Jerusalem, it's a sad scene. Like people are like breaking out, like their hearts are broken and stuff like that. It's a complete like sad scene to watch. And of course, the same thing happens in the time of Daniel and the 3 friends, Ananias, Azariah, and Meshach. So like the 3 of them are also exiled during the time of Babylon. It's a very sad. The temple is destroyed, and that is just like, that's their heart. That's like Dr. Abiy being shot. Like that's like, it's really bad. You don't even want to think about it. You don't even want to think about it. This is live. Right? So I mean, it's sad. It's a sad scene, and it happens because they break the covenant, and then God says, "I will show you my name. I'll show you my name." I gotta speak. You're like, yeah, you really do. The next one, Micah. Micah is also an interesting character. He's there like way before the destruction of Israel, right? He's one of the 12 minor prophets. He's there way before the destruction of Jerusalem. And in there, at this point, the nation of Judah, they're good guys, and they're vowing and they're promising God. They say, for all people walk each in the name of his God. But we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. So they're saying we'll walk in His name. We'll just see in a second what that means. Alright? So, if you guys are going to take anything away from this lesson, you cannot separate God's name from God. You cannot separate God's name from God. Like, it's the same thing, right? Usually we think of it like a different force, a different entity when we think about God, and then we think about God's name, right? So that's what it is. So now that we've seen that God's name is God, and His name has power, and we also define what vain means. And I like my definition better. It's like being useless, right? Like calling His name in vain means, just like vain, I have the definition here, producing no result, like useless. So you activate this strong force, but your response to that force is useless, as if it wasn't there. Right? So let's see different times we've invoked the name of God, and this is not exhaustive, but it's just some good examples to look at. certain times that we've invoked God's name. And let's do like this test to see if we've invoked it in vain or not. First thing is obviously when we were baptized. We were baptized in what? We were baptized in the water. We were baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, right? Right? Have you guys thought about what that means? Like, even when we pray. You ever, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, you ever thought about what it means? Like, what it means? Like, if we prayed right now, what do we, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit? What does that mean? Like, in the name. We're in His name. You ever thought about that?
What?
We're in His name. It's a prepositional phrase, right? You have to in, under, above, next to, like. Sorry, I'm doing a few languages now. I just want to show. So, like, so in means in. We don't say by the name. Hey, I'm about to kick y'all out, man. I'm about to kick y'all out. See, you're teaching today, like.
No, you said enemies.
It does, though, right? So I can get kicked out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Howard, so you?
I'm not even
It's a
laughing.
typical class. It's a
I'm not
typical
even
class.
laughing, bro.
So, in means in. Yes, I said it again. Because it means, like, we're in His name, we're inside of it, and we're surrounded by Him. Now, if you cannot separate God's name from God, that means if God is holy, we're surrounded by holiness. Like, we are in His name, meaning that we're surrounded by godliness. So we should exhibit that. We should show that some way, somehow. We are baptized when we pray. We're in the name of the Father. So now that God is around us at this second, right now. Does that make sense? So because we said in His name, we are actually living inside His name, inside God. That's how we start every prayer. That's how we were baptized. That's how we became His children. By saying we're surrounded by Him. We're living inside of Him. In His name. In His name. So, because we're in His name, we're surrounded by might, by power. That's been activated. Like I said, we're in holiness, righteousness, godliness. If this is the case, please somebody wake them up. We too must be holy, righteous, godly. If we're not exhibiting these powers and like these virtues of God, then we are calling His name in vain. How can I say that I am living in God or in His name and then not be holy? That means I've activated the power of the name of God and yet I'm not acting on it. That's useless. That's useless. I've called His name in vain. Why am I calling His name if I'm not reacting to it? Now, can we get real, people? Can we get real? Mm-hmm. Can we get real? A little bit of time to get real. Yeah. I can say most of us have divided sin into 3 sections. Right? I love this. Because it's true. The first one, I like to call them the never sins. The never sins. These are the sins that we never think about. Because it's not like something we're concerned about, like killing. Killing is wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. Like you can read in the Bible, like we never really associate ourselves like killing, right? You don't kill. You don't wake up today and say, God, please help me not kill today. Not today. You know, like it's not, if you are, please. Like, I'm worried, you know? But it's not something like we usually have to worry about, right? Like, yeah, we might say out of anger, I'm gonna kill you. But we don't really like, you know, it's just like whatever. So it's like the never sins. Never. Like, it's not even on our mind. Then we got the avoidable sins, right? These are like the sexual immoralities. Like, you do your best to avoid it. You might fall here and there. You ask for forgiveness, but you do your best to stay away from it. Like, getting drunk. Like, I gotta stop, right? So, like, you do your best, like, you fight it. Like, you try to get away from it. It might happen here and there, but you do your best as a Christian to come back and fight that challenge, that sin, then you got your it's okay sense. It's okay. It's okay. Right? It's okay. It's okay. Right? Right? These are like your profanities. Like, at this and at that, whatever. You know, like, it happens. Like, it's your line. Like, you know, what time did you come in today? Like, you're supposed to be there at 8. I came in at 8, but you really there at 9:30. You lied about it. You know, it's okay. It's okay. Everybody does it. You know what I mean? Cheating on your exam. Come on. Come on. You know, like, everybody does it. It's okay, right? But you know what it is? Probably the it's okays are going to prevent us from going to the kingdom of heaven. It's these sins. Really? You know why? Because it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. Take profanity, for example. Everybody's done it, right? Like, we all, like, you know? Like, the problem with profanity, you know how bad it is? Like, every part of our body is created for a particular purpose. Like, imagine that. So God sat down and said, I'm going to create you today. Like, my goal is to create this person. And He created a mouth for you. You know why He created that mouth? To honor Him. And we take the tool that He's given us in order to curse others. We bring honor to His name. We talked about this last week by blessing each other. Right? Like, that's the purpose of this. It's like to bring honor and praise to each other. To praise each other. To give love to each other. And we take the same mouth in order to curse at that person. At this. The tool that God is giving us to praise God with. We're using it to dishonor others. It's a big deal. That it's not that bad a mentality. It's horrible. It's horrible. And you know what the thing is? God really doesn't care about your action. We talked about this before. Right? Because we saw it. If it was about like the never sins, David was a murderer. He raped a girl. Judah raped a girl. Moses killed another person. These guys, like the entire, again, like the disciples, they're like the lowest of the low. You know what I think about? If biblical times was like present today, and we hung out with these people, like our parents would kill us. Like, I can't hang around with Paul, right? Like, because I got to go and explain to Mom, like, here's my friend Paul. Oh, Paul didn't happen. Then I put, yeah, Mom, like, he has a license to kill people. What? You know, like, bust him out, you know? Like, I can't bring David. I can't bring David in my house. He was a rapist. Like, literally a rapist, right? There's no way that anyone in this society would hang out with these people. Like, they're really, in our standards, these are low guys. But you know why God loved them? Because their attitude. Their attitude was correct. You guys with me? Everybody with me? Because their attitude was correct. You know what their attitude was? You know what David said after he raped somebody? He didn't say, people do it. That wasn't his attitude. He said, I'm a worm. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. He cried. You know what St. Paul did after he killed people? He said, I spent my life destroying the church. I'm going to work twice as hard to rebuild it. That was his attitude. He said, I'm horrible. I'm a horrible human being. Right? Like, please, God, I don't deserve your love, but forgive me. He showed his humility. Our attitude about, I don't care what sin it is, whether it's the never sin or the it's okay sin. If your attitude about it is, hey, everybody's doing it, you're like completely off. You're completely off. Because what God wants to see is, how are you striving to get close to Him as you're invoking His name? Remember, we've invoked His name. We should be around holiness. We should be holy. So if I'm not holy, I should be working hard to get there. God is going to help you. He just wants to see that you try. That's it. He really doesn't care if you actually do it or not. He doesn't look at your actions. He looks at your heart. Something that humans don't do. That's why, like, our whole perspective on Christianity is so off. It's so off. We don't get it. Like, we come back, we read the Bible, we talk about it, but we still don't understand. Because the minute we get out of here, we're still thinking about, like, if somebody said an F word versus someone, like, we heard did something horrible, right? We're likely to be like, how could they do that? And blame the second person over the first. But we don't know their heart. If somebody's attitude is not right, that's what God cares about. It's a different ballgame. It's a different ballgame. So, we have to take the position of saying, what I am doing is hurting God, I'm invoking His name, and therefore I don't want to call it in vain. The other thing, we invoke His name in prayer. We invoke His name in prayer. Here's the thing. When you pray, make sure you really mean what you're praying about. Alright? Like, we often pray about, like, God, help me grow spiritually. So the minute you say that, you've invoked His name. So you've activated force. So you best believe God is going to show up. And you're going to feel it. It's going to be powerful. Like lightning, right? Like lightning, even when like you whatever, like the thunderstorm, whatever, you could hear it. Sometimes you can even feel it, right? If that's Mother Nature, think about God. How much you would feel it in your life. True story. True story. Back in college. You've told me about that. Back in college. He really hates me. Back in college, this one particular evening, I went to a gathering, and it was late at night, and we were kind of waiting for a ride. So, but like there was a whole bunch of people. The gathering was just released, so everybody was kind of like. So it was like we were on the street or whatever, and there's like a whole bunch of people, and this one particular guy, like think of like this like huge guy, like he's about 6 feet tall. He's from Baltimore. You probably know him. No, I'm kidding. So like there's this guy, like he's like, you know, he's with us and he's being loud. He's doing this, and this other guy in the truck comes. This guy is driving it. He comes like directly at us, almost hits everybody. He screams out, "You stupid N-words." It rhymes with Iggers. Right? So he said it really loud, and he drove off. Mind you, this is Virginia Tech, right? Like, so like, majority of white people. Everybody was mad because we've been drinking orange juice. So like, we're very hyped, you know what I mean? You know how orange juice does it, you know? So like, this guy, in particular, the Baltimore guy, like, huge guy, he's like, "Oh no, son," you know? And he's doing his thing, and he's like, "Yo, if I ever see him as Don B," you know what I'm saying? And we're like, "Oh man, it's about to go down," you know? So yeah, if I ever see him, man, you never, yo, man, I'm from Baltimore, cuz. And we're like, "Okay, cousin," you know? So he's mad, everybody's upset, like, it's like, whatever. So then, as we're like still hyped up, the guy comes back. The guy comes back, he does the same thing again. And he goes to parks. This time, this guy like runs after him. I mean, you know, you're in college, you're like, "Oh, I'm about to go down." Oh. So we all run. We're thinking it's gonna be, you know, we're gonna hug each other for the camera. Camera. So like we're like, "Yo, like let's do this." So he goes there, and the guy comes out. He's a little bit bigger than we expected. So this guy, the Baltimore guy, like he goes up, he's like, "Excuse me." We were a little offended by what happened there. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not like, I wish my friends were here. I called you enough. They'll tell you the story exactly. You're like, "Excuse me, that was not right what you did back there. That was very offensive." We're like, "What are you doing? Like, this is your chance." And you're like, "No, just it wasn't correct." We're like, "What was your chance? You've been calling him, right? You've been calling him." This is the same thing we do with God. This is the same thing we do with God. You call his name, "God, like, come fix my life now." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Because I'm coming. And if I come, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it my way. Like, fix my life, change my life, do this. You sure? Because I will come. But I'm going to change your life. Best sermon I heard in my life, God ruins your life. He ruins it, like mixes it up, upside down and everything like that. Those of you guys who came into the church, like really stuck to it, right? You know your life is never the same. You could even try, like I've tried, right? Like to go back and do the things that you used to do, it's not the same. Like he ruins your life. Like literally. It changes forever. And that's the thing about invoking his name, because he will show up. Calling his name in vain means the minute he shows up, if you leave, then you've called his name in vain. Here's the thing. Think, for example, lying, right? That's the problem, like a lot of people face, like, help me not lie, help me not lie. You know what God will do? We talked about this before. He put you in a position to lie. You said, help me not lie, right? How do you know that you've overcome your weakness and lets you have the opportunity to lie and don't lie? That's the only way. That's the only way to come out of it. So he's not going to make you forget about it. No, because you've asked for it. Your prayer is not help me not like think about lying. It's help me not lie. Right? So he'll put you in the hardest position ever. Where like you got the lie. Got the lie. Right? Now, show me that you mean it. I'm here. This is how I do things. Show me. You say, I want to get closer to the church. I want to get closer to God. You know what's going to happen? Every single weekend, your friends from out of town are going to come and ask you to hang out. Every single weekend. Prove it to me. You want to grow? This is how you grow. We're going to do it in my way. You see? All of a sudden, you had like a nice, like easy life, whatever. Your job, like you be busy, you know, like things will start going down, and then all that stuff that used to be easy is all of a sudden hard, and you have all the reason to quit. But that's when God is changing your life. You asked for it. Then you know His presence is there. Whenever, especially when you've done like a really like heart-to-heart prayer, you invoke His name, and everything goes south, just know God has heard you. God has heard you. Because that's like the best way to know. Right? Because that's how He does things. He wants to show you His presence. You've got to work for it. Invoking His name and then leaving, that's the definition of calling His name in vain. And we didn't mean it. We didn't mean it. The other part is a little bit hard. The next part. The next part is praying for health. And it's hard, especially if you've ever had to do it. I think the most desperate that we become in our spiritual journey is praying to God and praying for health. Either for our own, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, or praying for someone that we love because they're sick. That will be the most difficult prayer that you ever do. That will be the most desperate that you become in your spiritual life. But even here, we've got to be careful not to invoke His name in vain. But what that means is, if I really believe in God, and He's the one who has my health in His hand, or He's the one who's in control of like my loved ones, I do the prayer, and I leave it to Him. I can't worry about it any longer. It's tough. It's a hard thing to do. If you ever didn't know your own health and where it was going, or you ever had to worry about someone that you love and you didn't know whether or not they were going to make it, that's like the worst thing ever. But calling His name and invoking His name and worrying means calling His name in vain. You've got to trust God and say, you know what? He knows best. Whatever it is, He's doing it for whatever purpose. He knows better than I do. Leaving it to God. This will be the most difficult prayer that you've ever done. It's like, I'll give you an example. It's like getting into an Uber. From an experience, sorry. Your job is to put the destination, right? Whatever, like destination, whatever. Then they get in the car, and the driver, right, is responsible to get you there in whatever direction that he wants. Now, sometimes, for example, like I get lost. And like the thing is, especially when like it's people from like out of state, right? I tell them, oh no, that side has traffic in it, because they're like, the GPS telling me to go this way. I'm like, no. This is a shortcut. But that's lying. But everybody does it. So, where are you going to? Okay. I'm not gonna stop. But especially if you're in an area where you don't, like, you're out of town or whatever, you don't know where you're going, you gotta trust your driver. That's the only way of you going from point A to point B, right? That's the only. The same way, if our journey is to the kingdom of heaven, or if our journey, in this case, is dealing with health issues, we don't know how that story is going to end, but we know where we want to go. Let's leave it to God to how He's going to get us from point A to point B. Does that make sense? Oh, welcome, brother. So that's our job. Our job is to trust God and make sure that we go from point A to point B and leave everything else to Him. Last thing. We invoke His name during worship. I talked about this. You know, when we talk about worship, the biggest thing that we have to understand is, again, because His name is God, each time we, like Sunday mornings, we're missing an opportunity to meet God face to face. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? If His name equals Him, if God's name is actually God Himself, each time I say here, it's actually God Himself. His name is God. And every single time we do a worship, guess what? Who's there? God Himself. We're missing an opportunity to be face to face with God every Sunday morning. Invoking His name in vain means having the opportunity to be with God but choosing not to. On the other hand, I'm going to leave you guys with this, and it's a little off topic, but I like this story. So I'm going to tell you this. Yeah.
Where it says as your life changes, what is the answer to that?
Come closer to God.
As your life changes, come closer to God.
Come closer to God. Don't go away.
Don't feel it.
Don't do that. So here's the thing. A little story. Kind of like it. So this old man goes to church. Older than me. Old man goes to church. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's the only thing he does. So people look at him all the time. They're like, oh man, you're pretty old. Like, why don't you take a break, man? Just like, chill out. You know, like, you don't need to go every single time. And they're like, you know, you got a guardian angel, like, that comes and cares for us, right? Like, well, we believe it. You don't have to. I believe it. So, like, he said, when the guardian angel comes and, like, he's about to take me away to the kingdom of heaven, he's going to be asked, where did you find him? And I want him to say, I found him with God. You see? I found him with God. And the same thing, like, if you think about it, like, we got guardian angels, right? Like, they're going to be talking to each other, like, where is God today? You know? But you want people to say, like, or the angels, like, you know, mine, like, the one that I'm guarding, he was with Jesus today. Wow, how beautiful is that? Every time we call his name, we're with Jesus. All you got to do is, like, you know, prayer, like, sometimes, like, just God. That's a prayer. Right? Just his name is enough. You don't have to do, like, 10-hour prayer. Just think about it. More about here, right? And less about, like, how long of a prayer you're doing. Like, it is transit. Like, don't first heart. Like, have that relationship, right? So when you do that, then we're not calling him in vain. Calling him his name in vain means you call him and you don't recognize how much power you're surrounded by, how much holiness, godliness, love you're surrounded by. That is what it is. Now we're going to take it over to the guy who's laughing the entire time.
Be like that.
All right. So before I guess I start the lesson, I just want to ask you guys, when it comes to, like, this commandment we just learned about, which is not saying the Lord's name in vain, right? Why do you think most of us do it? Huh? Out of habit. What else? Of the 3 sins that we talked about in class, yeah.
I mean, sometimes people think it's actually good. Like when they say, like, people who don't know about God, like, they think saying that is actually good. Like, they don't think it's in vain.
Okay, what else? Anybody? For those of us, like, let's say, like, oh my God, or like, oh, or using it in profanity terms when we're angry and such. Everyone does it, right? And also, I think this is one of the commandments that we don't pay attention to that much, or we don't care as much. You know, like, it's like we talked about in class, there's 3 types of commandments. This is one of the it's okay ones, right? Because it's like, oh, we're just saying God's name, right? But what's the actual commandment? Don't what? What's the action? What's the verb in that commandment? Say, right? Say, meaning it's something that we say. It's words, right? Like, that tells you how powerful our words are. Like, I don't want to just come up here and just, like, repeat everything he said. So I want to focus on the power of our words. Like, we don't think about it when we say it. Like when we say, oh my God, or oh, like when we actually saying his name is vain, like we're not thinking. We're not thinking, oh, we actually, like we discussed in class, we're not actually summoning the power of God. We're just saying a word, and we don't actually know the true power of our words. So the verse we're going to look at is Proverbs 21:23, and it says, those who guard their mouth and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. So, I was watching a show, like I think like it might have been Hannah Montana or something when I was a little kid. And I watched that show, I don't care. But like I remember because the guy was like, before what you're about to say, think about what you're saying, and then don't say it. Right? What? Like think about it. It's before you're about to say what you before you say what you're about to say, think about it and then don't say it. Right? Because I think none of us think about what we're saying when we're saying those things. Right? And this is just to show it's more than this commandment. It's talking about the power of our words, how powerful our words truly are. And we're saying his name in vain because we're not thinking. We're not thinking a commandment or everything. But this goes a lot further than that. This goes to see how we communicate with each other, right? This goes to see how we just talk to a regular person, how we say hi, how we say bye, how we interact with a person, how we like ignore a person. Whatever it may be, we need to understand, like think about it, like with our words, with words that come out of our mouth, we are showing disgrace to God's name. And like just with your words, you can bring the name of God down. You can the mouth that was given to us to praise God, right? Are you guys with me? The mouth that was given to us to praise God, to give him thanks to, and the same mouth and the same words, we can bring him down. That's power. Like we at least have to admit, like forget the commandment, forget everything. We at least have to admit that our words have power. So with that in mind, right? This is more of, as I guess, a Christianity thing, right? More of like being a follower of Christ. Let's be weary of the words we say, not just when it comes to commandments, but to each other, right? With your words, with how powerful it is, you have the ability to make or break a person. Right? With your words, you have the ability to either make somebody's day or ruin it. Right? So, and I think most of us don't know how powerful, what the power of like our words are. And that's scary because it's such a scary weapon. It's like waving around a gun like a little kid. Like if a little kid was holding a gun, and he's waving around, everybody's gonna be like, oh my goodness, right? That little kid don't know the power of the gun. He doesn't know he can actually hurt somebody. He doesn't know he can kill somebody, ruin somebody's life, right? With that gun. To him, it's just a toy. And I think that's how we view our words at times. It's just things we say, things that don't matter, but they are so, so, so powerful. Imagine like someone is going through something, someone is having a bad day. Your word, if you say the wrong thing, that could be the like whatever boiling point, whatever that person to go do something crazy. Just as powerful as that, imagine the same person having the same long day, the worst day, you coming after him, reaching out and say, hey, how's it going? Or, hey, how are you? You know, just nice things. Let's truly, truly understand the power of our words. Because I think only then, and then we can come back to the commandment, when we understand how powerful our word is, then we can be like, oh my goodness, I'm actually bringing down the name of God with my words. That's something we should be ashamed of. Like that should put us to shame. And then we can we'll start working towards the commandment. But more than that, it's a lifestyle, right? Christianity, it's not just like something you do on Sunday, it's a lifestyle. So when you see a fallen brother, a fallen sister, you're supposed to pick them up, right? So it's not just actions, it's not just like things that you do, but also you can hurt or heal somebody with your words. And I'm going to finish off on this verse on James 1, verse 26. It says, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. I'm going to read it one more time. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. So I urge you, moving on from today and like just for like moving forward, to be wary of how powerful the things you say are. How powerful are this tool God gave us to speak, how powerful it truly is when it comes to our faith and also affecting some other people's lives. What's my like, Zach?